Welcome to another episode of Sailing Indiana. This week we will be talking to you about our time in the boatyard.
In last week's episode you saw us transport the boat from Norfolk to Brighton. So in this episode we will be talking through our time in the boatyard and on the hard, because we have 2 weeks to try and get through a few little jobs.
The jobs we will be doing are anti-fouling, earthing the engine to the anode, changing the anodes, giving the anode a little bit of a polish, getting the mast up, getting all the rigging done and on, standing and running, and putting the sails on before she's dropped back in the water.
Yeah, all in 2 weeks.
All in 2 weeks.
Hi, I'm Lauren and this is Chris and this is Sailing Indiana. We're two pretty average people. We have pretty average jobs, have to pay bills like everybody else.
We have bought a sailing boat and this is our story.
She is a 1989 Gib'sea 372. She's 11.5 meters and she's French.
So if you want to come on this journey with us, keep watching as we swap a life in the city for a life at sea.
We weren't allowed to stay on the boat whilst it was on the hard, so Chris came down to meet the riggers on what was probably the coldest day of the year.
This is me.
This is Chris.
It was
Reporting to you live.
over to you, Chris. Chris, we hear you're in the boatyard. Could you let us know what's going on? We've got Chris in the boatyard, and he's just about to let the riggers in. It's quite cold. It's quite cold.
He looks a little chilly.
Okay, over to you.
We're idiots.
Okay, so just turned up at the boatyard and today is the day that the boat gets re-rigged or stepped and re-rigged. I'm just here to let the guys in because as you can see the boom is currently sitting within the boat. So the idea being I'm here, get the boom out and then hopefully hand over to the professionals. So we've got a company called Rigit UK coming in to do everything for us. I think really when you re-rig, you've got to make sure that all the tensioning's right, and ideally you'd get, you know, what they're going to do is a rig inspection as well, and that means then I'm confident and happy that all the standing rigging or the running rigging is in good working condition and is safe to use. Lauren and I are obviously novices at this, so we think that's probably a job a little bit too big for us. So the boatyard are going to help in terms of drainage for the mast going up, and then I'll just sit around and have a little look and see how it's done and hopefully film some of it to show you guys.
What past Chris didn't know then and what I know now is that we weren't going to get rigged today, and there was going to be a few things that the riggers found as to why we weren't, but I'll let him explain what's happening.
Okay, change of plan. The rigger has found some issues with the rig and it doesn't look like we'll be rigging the boat today and stepping the mast. So the plan has changed to taking the mast off the deck and having a proper inspection, really close look, and seeing, you know, what it is that that can be done, for how much they can do it for. Oh yeah, a bit difficult because all the standing rigging was new when we bought the boat. It was only a year old, but I don't know the technical words for it, but yeah, there's some issues basically. I'll find out what they are and be a bit more technical when I next respond. Just when you think everything's going okay, then something happens that costs money or that breaks or that sets you back. So the schedule's changed.
So the long list that the rigger actually gave of jobs that needed to be done on the mast itself and on the rigging came to a hefty sum that has basically wiped out our budget for the whole of this year. So yeah, pretty sad times for us and not something we were expecting at the time.
No.
So the only advice I can give is that you should always have a rig inspection before purchasing a boat, especially if you don't have a clue what you're doing. Yeah. So yeah, a rig inspection, maybe it's going to be 200 quid or something, 250, but knowing that, you could at least maybe use the results of that to negotiate a price, because if you know you're going to have to fork out X number of £1,000 to get the jobs done afterwards, at least if you can be met halfway with that, you'll feel a little less glum about the news. So here's what needs to be done. We were told at the time when we bought the boat that the standing rigging had been changed in 2019, which was true, but it hadn't been done correctly, and it's where the swaging has been done at the top where they connect to the mast. It has only been swaged a little way up the fitting where it needs to be the full way in, so it's not really safe. It's not the way it should be done, and the rigger wouldn't be able to certify the work knowing that was still sat there, and he'd put a mast up knowing that was the case. And actually for us, you know, if we're going to be out in conditions that are unfavourable, yeah, less than ideal conditions, then we are going to be much happier knowing that we changed that when we were told to, and we didn't skimp. So full new standing rigging, and there's a couple of backstays missing as well, which was just random. The guy was like, oh yeah, and these are missing, I don't know why, there's two of those. So that's happening. We're getting a whole new furling system. It's going to be a Profile C350 furling system, and that is because that wasn't changed by the looks of it when or at least the forestay wasn't changed within the system, and yeah, the furling itself is just really old. So why not do that at the same time? And then there's a few other bits, obviously labour included in that. There's the mast running rigging. We want a 10mm head sail halyard, spinnaker halyard, main sail halyard, and an 8mm topping lift. And I think there's a 10mm topping lift at the moment, which is the wrong size, which is why we're changing. And there's other bits that are just missing that weren't even there. So that's that. And obviously the labour then to splice and sheave and put all that together. We're getting a new spin lock triple clutch, and the labour to install that. Repairs to the outboard and inboard ends at the top and bottom of the spreaders and the spreader roots, clevis pins replaced, labour and parts, and that is because the spreaders have loads of play. There's nothing really where the spreaders go in that is supporting it, and the pins are the wrong size, and one of the pins is actually a nut, which is not right. So yeah, there's a lot of play there, and over time that's just going to wear down. So, and I think we're quite lucky that the boat hadn't been sailed for a long time before we got it, otherwise those problems would have been exacerbated over time, and it would have been a lot of damage, and you'd have had to replace the spreaders, which are like custom. You'd have to get them custom made at this point because the boat's so old. So, and then there's an old radar bracket that is being removed, and there's going to be a metal plate put behind that. The light fitting, which was newly put on by the guy who sold it to us, but actually it was just put on by these two really small rivets, and it looked like it was about to fall off anyway. So there's going to be a proper bracket put in place for that, for the steaming light. So that's another little cost. There's going to be, the boom needs to be fully refurbished. There's no outhaul system in there, and it's just basically a hunk of metal in the shape of a boom at the moment. So that's which is not great. It's not ideal. So that's getting a full overhaul, repair to the Vang attachment, repair to the gooseneck and nano gooseneck. I don't know what that means, but it's technical. It's on the list. Service to the inboard and outboard ends of the boom, including somebody's starting up the engine, including the sheaves replaced, and Vang complete, including a cascade adjuster. So that sounds good. As I said, the main sail outhaul system, including low beam track, ball bearing car, and the end stops. So yeah, pretty much everything that makes the boom work, what it is, what it does, is getting replaced. So joy, and then obviously all of that put up as well. So that's the story. I think that's it,
I think so.
hopefully.
Yeah.
So as the riggers aren't putting the mast back up today and re-rigging, the mast is coming off the boat, getting inspected as we just said, and hopefully we get a date of when it all can be put back together again.
We are quickly realising that owning a boat is just as expensive as we've been warned. On next week's episode, we managed to carry out our planned boatyard jobs.